Welcome to the Heartful Healing Hub podcast. I am Deanne, your host, frequency intuitive and energetic healing guide, here to hold space for transformation through sound, energy, and sacred storytelling. You're listening to Healed and Whole Stories of Remembering, a special series where I sit with women who've walked through deep health challenges and emerged transformed. These are conversations that are sacred, heart to heart, soul to soul, filled with truth, resilience, and the power of coming home to yourself. May these conversations inspire your own inner healer to awaken. Let's begin. Hello, everyone. Welcome back. I am sitting here with my friend Rusti Lihei, and I will just read a little bio here to make sure that I am totally on par with who she is, and then we'll move on. Okay, so here goes. As a global editor, book and writing coach, accessing Rusti's collaborative, immersive, heart-centered editing methods, writers, both novice and seasoned, become published. Currently, Rusti splits her time between her favorite places and activities, experimenting in the kitchen, hiking and backpacking, and her desk, offering 7 different bi-weekly online writing events and her own writing projects. She loves ziplining, hiking, and little free libraries, reading every genre except math. Yeah, I can see that. She also sneaks away to speak at events, offers workshops, and regularly irks family members by not answering calls when she is writing. So welcome, Rusty. How are you?
I'm good. How are you, Diane?
I'm doing well, thank you. All right,
Yeah,
so I'm looking forward to sharing your story. So if you want to begin um, at your leisure, let us know.
sure. Well, you and I both connected quite a while ago, and we really felt on par with how healing is an inside job. And one of the poets that I absolutely love and adore is Rupi Kaur. She has a poem about how foolish was I to think the work was done when healing work is everyday work. And that goes to all those levels, to mental, emotional, spiritual, physical. It's everything. And our brain is this miraculous machine, body of knowledge that we bring with all of our experiences. And when we have past traumas, they can become dis-ease. When we can heal those traumas, dis-ease can vanish. Deepak Chopra has made it his life's work to discover and work on what are miraculous healings according to Western medicine. So we shared a bit of our story that was really quite similar. Like you did a lot of your own inner work too, didn't you?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, for sure. So I jumped off the factory assembly line of medicine in 2003 when I was diagnosed with breast cancer, and my whole body was like, "What? This doesn't happen to me." But a couple years later, when I exited that relationship that I was in, I realized, oh, it was a big epiphanies there that were a little bit hard to accept that I had let somebody else dictate the way that I was to live. And this is the key word, is I had allowed it. There is no such thing as a pure victim. I had allowed my life to be quietly eroded to keep the peace, to keep him comfortable. And with all due respect to him, he was probably on the spectrum and a lovely human being, but he could not um, focus or deal well with too much going on. And I let all of my outside life go until it didn't work anymore. And breast cancer appeared as a big wake up call.
Yes, that's often what happens is our expression, our insides or what's going on emotionally expresses outwards if you want, externally,
Hmm.
physically. So yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
So that was
Physically, I
basic.
wasn't a candidate. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Physically, I wasn't a candidate. I wasn't a candidate for breast cancer because I was eating organic most of the time. We weren't eating out. He didn't really like being in public, so cooked all at home. I was really into healthy cooking, good fats, good fiber, good vegetables, not heavy in the proteins, really a balanced diet, omnivore. Yes, I will always be an omnivore. And I make some really good vegan dishes too. Then also I was exercising, I was stretching on a daily basis, doing cardio probably 5 or 7 days a week, doing weight training 2 days a week at the gym. We were hiking when I could convince him to go out and, because I had made my own schedule. I was freelance writer. We could go out when the hiking trails weren't busy, but it just got busier and busier and busier too much for him. And then my life just got down. And the last thing that we did together when he was able to do uh, outside activities because the cancer scared him way more than it scared me. I trusted my body and was doing a whole bunch of research during that time. We did a Qigong healing weekend, which I loved. I just loved it. We were in a room full of people. I could socialize. I could be my social butterfly self, and I'm shooting up my hand when I'm giving some of the names of the exercises, fixing the clouds, stirring the clouds, and Jesus standing, and look down in the world from a high place with unconditional universal love type thing, and the first person to shout out some names of that would take home some of the meals that they'd serve for lunch, and he was trying to push my hand down because he didn't want attention drawn to him. Well, that night I am like pumped, and it's awesome, and this is the last thing, and I'd gotten an anti-malignant anti-serum test back from Boston that said as if I'd never had cancer. And after this, a bunch of detoxing, and so he was ready to go back into the pumpkin shell. And I was free. And he was so morose that night and so distraught that I just could barely sit still with that energy. So I said, let's go for a walk. And I really had to convince, beg, plead, almost, let's go for a walk. And on that walk, if I my eyes weren't open before, they certainly got open then. He's on that walk, he said, when we get out of the city and off the grid, we are not giving our forwarding address to anyone. Yeah. So that's when I knew I needed to start really evaluating whether it was too good to leave, too bad to stay.
Wow. Yes, for sure. That is for sure. Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, sometimes it's just, as you said, we do allow external influences and people, unfortunately,
Mm-hmm.
that are, we just tell them, okay, that's okay. You're allowed to do whatever you want. And yeah, it affects
Mm-hmm.
us. So,
Yes.
so your healing process, how did that go?
I Of course, like I did the physical healing, I jumped off the factory assembly line of medicine, much to my surgeon's chagrin. In fact, he was very upset and irate with me when I refused to do radiation because I had lied to him the day of surgery. Yep, I'm going to do the lumpectomy and radiation. I'll sign here. And I fully well knew that I was not going to do radiation. I'd done my research. I'd contacted a radiologist from Colorado who was the sister-in-law of a brother-in-law of my university professor here from statistics. And she looked at all of my medical papers and said, you don't need it. They're being extra cautious. But I'd already decided because my naturopath, my chiropractor, and my traditional Chinese medicine doctor all agreed that I could recover from chemotherapy as if I'd never had it, but not radiation. So I wasn't going to do that. So the only tattoos I have are four little blue dots to convince the surgeon that I was going to do radiation, where to aim the sunny side of the atom. That's the only tattoos I have. Tiny little, blue dots. And then I did antioxidants, and really, like, if there was any gaps in my healthy eating before, I really cleaned that up totally. I had read a book by Dr. Jane Plant, Your Life is in Your Own Hands, how she had breast cancer 5 times. The last time it metastasized, she was an earth geologist. She could measure tennis ball size lumps protruding from her lymphatic system. Doctors told her to get her affairs in order. She started doing iodine supplements, eating more seafood, and dropping all dairy. And so I started doing some research down the dairy rabbit hole, and I found out that the one drug that they love to give women after breast cancer, tamoxifen, its main job is to block insulin growth factor 1, IGF-1, that is in dairy, that makes it through the barriers of our brain and stomach. And because it's there to make calves grow and babies grow, only two species on the planet is exactly the same, are humans and cattle. And so when that main function was to block that and find out that IGF-1 is exponentially worse in the States because they allow recombinant bovine growth hormone, and that there's something in low fat, if we're going to have dairy, there's something in high fat that protects us from the IGF-1. So I slowly let dairy back in my life after years, and like the breast cancer was in 2003. Woohoo! 23 years this June. I have defied the thing, the system, and done it my own way. But there was so many things to discover. But the big thing was one of the books that I'd read in the research was that breast cancer is the ultimate divorce and societally acceptable suicide for a lot of women. And Gabor Mate, who wrote the book When Our Body Says No, The Hidden Costs of Stress, he studies psychoneuroimmunoendocrinology, does it as one big word, about how every emotion and every thought is a biological, chemical, physical event in our bodies. Every thought and every emotion. And reading that and his chapter on breast cancer as the good girl disease, oh, that was me. That was so me with my mother and this partner. They were very much alike. When my mother didn't have men in her life, she wanted all of me. And he wanted all of me. He didn't have his own passions. So this is my little red flag in my memoir to women, is that make sure that the man that you want to be with, if you want to be with a man, you want to be with a woman, make sure that they have their own passions, because you cannot be everything for anyone else. Because I ended up drained, totally drained. It was like my bucket was dry. There was no way it would hold water. I was thirsty for life. There just they have to have their own passions. That's my drop, drop, in the line in the sand like thing. If we're going to be friends, even because I had one woman that again was reminiscent of my mother and my partner, wanting to talk every day, wanting to be in connection every day. I don't do friendships like that. I have friends where I can go months without talking to them, and all of a sudden we can just pick up where they left off, where we both left off. And I don't miss my sister when I'm not in touch with her. We just don't miss each other. We're busy living life. So I then read some more about the personalities that he was and I was according to the Enneagram. And so if he was on the spectrum, it was compounded by the fact that he was also likely an Enneagram 5, which is the observer, solitary observer, intellectualist, who has all the ideas of how the world should be run, but won't step up to do it because they are stingy with their time, their energy, their resources, their space. In 9 years, we only had people in for company twice, and each time his energy got so big and so gloomy that they felt pushed out. Pushed out. So I learned that my personality is a wing of that personality. So when I'm at home, I can be really reclusive. But when I go out, I can be all about the adventure and networking and being out there with people. So it worked for a while, and it gave me a chance to learn discipline about working out, exercise, and being a prolific writer means showing up at your desk. I mean, sitting in the seat of your pants and the seat of your chair and staying there until you've reached your goals. So I wrote a lot in that relationship, but writing was also my way out too, finding out how I needed to live and to honor that me that I had been pushing to the side, pushing to the side.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing that. Um,
Yeah.
so, other than writing, what do you feel, and obviously severing that relationship, what would you say that did you use any other modalities, or what tools did you use, or did you find your inner wisdom, your inner voice, or what would you
hmm
say really helped you?
Yeah, in that relationship, I was estranged from my family for those 9 years. And my sisters took me back in and forgave me. I'm eternally grateful to them both for that. My sister is a mind body emotional healer, resolution therapist, coach. She's got so many titles that are not formal titles, but she's just so gifted at what she does. So when I left that relationship, in a very dramatic way, not coming back, didn't tell him I was going. She actually made me do the emotional work of leaving without leaving, of giving him a chance to come and meet me on my rock. So that was huge because she said, if you don't do this work now, you're only going to bring this into our relationship or the next relationship you get into. And she was right. So I did a lot of emotional work. I kept on doing morning pages for about 3 years after that to really, like as you said, the inner voice, because the six in the Enneagram, my personality, the loyal skeptic, worst case scenario type person, we have a hard time trusting our own inner authority. So it's the nail on the head when you said that, did I find my inner voice? So during some of those outings when I was entertaining the idea, can this be a relationship that's more balanced? I don't have to be with 24/7, and you don't have to be with me 24/7. If you need to stay home, stay home. I'll tuck you in. That wasn't good enough. I had to go at the same time, get up at the same time, um, and to keep his equilibrium balanced. So during that time when we were trying, and I was having an open mind to this, he he surfaced again in that way. He said, "It's all your way now," and I said, "No, it's not, but you had it your way for 9 years." And I started then to cut the threads and feel like I had done the resolution work that I needed to not repeat the pattern. And as far as other therapies and modalities went, we do a lot of things. I do iodine because one of the other doctors that I read during my research with breast cancer was that Breast Cancer and Iodine by Dr. David Derry. Coincidence that his name is Derry. It's Derry, not dairy as in cattle dairy. And he wrote this excellent book about how iodine, we need that for the cells to perform apoptosis, for them to die and rejuvenate, die and rejuvenate. And we're not getting the iodine from the salt because it's uptaken by the bromide, the table salt, regular salt. We're not getting it in our plant foods anymore because the soil is being depleted. We're not getting it from our seafood as much as we should because there's like wild seafood and for some people who live inland, seafood is just not as good as when you're like by the ocean, the fresh water, when you get fresh water. So he studied this, and it correlated with Dr. Jane Plant, who I mentioned earlier, what she discovered about the kelp, especially the kelp around Iceland, and how they both discovered that breast cancer and prostate cancer, very similar causes for both men. If you're at risk for prostate cancer, you need iodine too. Is that before the North American Free Trade Agreement, Icelanders were eating their discarded fish parts through feeding them to their cattle. And yes, we have cows on the farm here, and they do like salmon. They do like smoked salmon. They like it. And so they were feeding their discarded fish parts to their cattle. So then they're getting that iodine from that fresh waters in their dairy. And they're good about the high fat dairy there too. They have their skyr, whatever how you call it. Icelandic's a hard language. And uh, Dr. David Derry, he was talking about how we need that iodine. Dr. Jane Plant was talking about how we need that iodine. And when they started selling their discarded fish parts, their breast and prostate cancer in Iceland within a few short years reached the same levels of North America, whereas before it had been almost no. So anecdotal to some degree, maybe I like to connect in the dots and the lines, and then that wasn't the last one that I connected with that when I said that I had discovered a research journal about tamoxifen, and their main purpose is to block IGF-1. So all these different things, I mean, I forgot a lot of the things that I researched and I did because I just am confident now that I'm free. I am eating well. I eat a balanced diet, heavier on the protein, because I just went to a low carb conference, Metabolic Health, in Boca Raton, where they're doing amazing things. And there were doctors there in January at the conference in Boca Raton, Florida. They have their other one in the summertime in San Diego. And there were doctors there that were talking about how they are reversing disease with their patients. They're taking them off medications. And there was one doctor that owns 6 elder care homes and makes sure that the diet in the elder care homes are ketogenic, low carb, high fat, good protein, good fats, no seed oils. And those clients in those homes are being taken off statins. Their blood pressure is being reduced by diet. They are being taken off and reducing and maybe totally free of insulin because diet. And their heart disease is reversing, and Alzheimer's, dementia is reversing. People are going home from his elder care homes. They're going back to their families. So diet is probably the one area that I'm a huge proponent on. Supplements a little bit. I brew my own kombucha and with for the probiotics that are in it because the chemotherapy did a number on my digestive system. It was huge, and I was told I was going to have to be on laxatives the rest of my life, and I refused to believe that. And so I didn't do any of the hardcore laxatives, but what I did do was I used traditional Chinese medicine herbals when I needed them. And for 10, 11 years, I was pretty dependent on that. But then I discovered kombucha, and it said all these wonderful things. I thought, shall I try that? And I did. And within 3 months of drinking my own kombucha, which I would make more sour because there was a Russian hospital that would brew theirs for a month in a very warm environment and then feed it to their patients. And by that time, it's got to be like more tart than apple cider vinegar. Um, Within 3 months, I was feeling things that I hadn't felt for years, and my body was functioning again in without laxatives, without the traditional Chinese medicine herbals, without Senna-T, which is really brutal, really brutal. So I eat a lot of probiotics. I do a lot of my own fermenting food, and we eat our own chicken eggs here on the farm. We could eat goats if we wanted to, but my brother-in-law, he's almost 80, and he loves his goats, and so he just can't do that anymore. But the goats keep him active. He's got about 6 more mama goats to kid, and they'll all be done having their kids probably by before the end of March, maybe even earlier, because I think about 40 of them have already had their kids, and so we've got baby goats everywhere.
That's awesome.
It is.
So what did you like if you had to pinpoint something that this whole journey awakened within you, what would you say that was?
Mm. To thine own self be true. If I don't take care of myself, then I'm no good for anyone else. And during the end of that relationship, I remember feeling almost catatonic because I couldn't make known what I really needed because it was so opposite of what he needed. I would say that I just need time alone. In fact, Gary Chapman, Five Love Languages, there's somebody that wrote an essay on Substack, I should have kept it, and talked about there's a sixth love language where you need distance, you need time alone. And I'm pretty sure that's one of my top ones. So, to thine own self be true. My sister knows that if I'm feeling bad, that I'm not over there visiting or, cooking. She doesn't like cooking, and my deal is that I'll do most of the cooking. But she knows that if I need to cocoon and take care of myself, she'll find something. She'll do something. She'll take care of herself. So I know that I need lots of alone time, downtime. I need lots of outside time. During the winter, my outside time is walking in the snow, putting my ski pants on, going and getting wood, hauling the water because we can't drink the well water here. So we have a distiller in the pump house that everybody uses. So I haul my water. And in the spring and summer, there's more out into the goat pastures where my brother-in-law paves a trail with a, well, paves, makes a trail with a golf cart. And but the goats aren't out there using those pastures in the snow. And cutting thistles down because they are a noxious weed. So lots of bending and stretching. So exercise, food, um, connection with people when I've had enough of my own time. I'd say those are my top things. Yoga, I do yoga and weightlifting pretty much every day. If I miss yoga for a few days, I can fall off and then be really upset with myself for not doing it. But then and then that being upset, that doesn't help me get back on the yoga mat. So then I have to give myself permission for missing the yoga mat, then talk myself back into getting on it because I know that once I do that first day back on it, then I'm committed again. So it's giving yourself some grace and space for variety and living in a rhythm that is uniquely mine and knowing that that's okay. That they can say maybe at my celebration of life, oh, she was like hell to get her out of the house to family gathering, but once we got her here, it was worth the effort. I can expect them to say something like that.
That's awesome. All right. So what message would you like to share if like someone that would was listening to your story and truly relates? So what do you think that you would like to share with them um,
Hmm.
from your wisdom?
I would I would love to share that writing has always been key. When I'm feeling off kilter, out of um, out of joint, out of sync with the world, with what I need to be doing, I know I need to go back to my journal and write. And Dr. Caroline Leaf, who wrote this amazing book, Switch on Your Brain, she was on Tom Bilyeu Impact Theory. Anyone can look up to Impact Theory, Tom Bilyeu, and Dr. Caroline Leaf as the leaves that fall from a tree. And about 37 minutes in that video, she talks about what happens in our hand, up our arm, and in our brain when we write by hand. And so when I wrote in the mornings, when this partner skipped, that was the only 30 minutes I ever had really guaranteed that he was not going to come in and interrupt because once that skipping rope started slapping the floor, he didn't stop. Once in 9 years when he couldn't breathe. But he never stopped. Once that skipping rope started slapping the floor, he'd keep on going for 30 minutes. So when I started asking myself the questions, too good to leave, too bad to stay, because he was kind, he was gentle. I did a lot of my sexual healing from childhood sexual abuse within that relationship, but I needed to look at what parts of it were hurting me. And writing was key. Writing was the way that I found the way back to my own inner guiding light. Writing is huge. Writing is healing. Dr. Sarah Jeffress, she's got an excellent TED Talk, says you cannot heal what you cannot write. So write.
Interesting. Thank you. That is very
Yeah.
awesome. Any last
You're
words?
welcome. Oh, it is such an honor to hang out with someone else who believes that we have more potential in our bodies and in our minds and our heart to be in charge of what goes on at a cellular level, way more than what we ever will know probably in this lifetime. You are powerful. We all are powerful beyond measure.
Thank you. All right. So, best ways, it's going to be in the show notes, but best ways people can get a hold of you.
Mm. My website, my LinkedIn, my Instagram are all my name, Rusty Lehay. Rusty with an I, Lehay, Lehay. And I'm available at any of those channels. On Facebook, I'm Rusty Lee because I started it up way long time ago with family, and my middle name is Leanne. So I just did Rusty Lee, and I've left it that way because Facebook's mostly for family. So everywhere else, LinkedIn, Instagram, and Twitter, even it's now X, and website, all is Rusty Lee.
All right. Awesome. I so greatly appreciate you taking the time today to be here and share your story. So I'm really grateful for that. So I thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for spending time with us inside the Heartful Healing Hub. If this story moved you, please consider sharing this episode or leaving a comment. Your words help others find this sacred space. If you or someone you love has a healing journey to share, we'd love to hear from you. And finally, if you would enjoy a gentle way to unwind after listening, visit the show notes to download your free tea ritual guide, Sip and Soften, a soul-soothing gift to nourish your inner healer. Until next time, be kind to yourself and trust what has always been within you. And remember, you are whole, you are healing, you are home.